Last year, these were two 14-win teams meeting at Ford Field. Luke Braun, what is this year?
A disaster.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, let's do this, everybody. It's a Thursday crossover brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. Matt Derry, Locked On Lions. Luke Braun, Locked On Vikings. The first of two meetings between these NFC North, last year powerhouses, this year just rivals as the Lions come in.
Well, one powerhouse, and then also the Vikings are trying to sometimes produce football.
The 3-4 Vikings. We are brought to you by PrizePicks. Download that PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Of course, follow us wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to both of our shows on the Locked On Lions and Locked On Vikings YouTube channels. Thank you to Jake Riepma, who filled in for me the last 3 days as I am back. And great to be back with my man Lucas Braun, who I love dearly. We've had great crossovers, great shows the last few years together. And Luke, I got to be honest, I'm a little bit stunned is watching the Vikings the last 2 weeks, which I have. This past week against the Chargers, just an uncompetitive game, but obviously J.J. McCarthy coming back, maybe get your tackles back, but what's been going on?
Yeah, the last game hopefully will go down as something of an outlier because the Vikings didn't practice leading up to that game on the short week. They did only walkthroughs. So, I mean, look, I'm not a coach. I'm not, an experienced NFL mind, but I would think about practicing, which they've already done. So we're ahead maybe on that one. Every week has been something exactly that stupid, Matt. It's been absolutely insane to watch everything the Vikings touch turn to ash. They trade away Harrison Phillips. They struggle with run defense all year. They trade away Mekhi Blackman, and they don't have essentially a fourth cornerback. They have an undrafted second-year player that they would rather put in four safeties. And Jeff Okudah, who is dealing with a concussion, probably isn't going to play in this game. So you're probably going to see that again. And that's going to make for, the strengths and weaknesses that it makes for when you have safeties instead of corners on the field. They try to zig, and then the next team zags. And it's just, they've been chasing it for the last few weeks, especially on defense. This is not the Brian Flores defense that got, honors for that had, coaching, like, Flores in the running for like assistant of the year. This is a team that has been bottom 5 in a lot of categories since week 4. If you take out the Bengals game, which I mean you guys saw what the Bengals did when they when you went to Cincinnati. If you take that debacle Jake Browning mess away from the Vikings, they've been a bottom 5 team in most categories. This is just an also ran of the league.
On this side, obviously, just for the Vikings listeners and viewers, I mean, the Lions off a bye, feeling very, very good at 5-2. Big news on Wednesday, of course, was the Aiden Hutchinson contract extension. So he gets $45 million a year. So everybody's happy here, and everybody expects with J.J. McCarthy coming back to the state of Michigan, where of course he won a national championship. But I think people are interested in seeing what he looks like. But I don't think there's going to be anybody in that stadium at Ford Field Sunday at 1:00 noon Central that is going to think that the Lions are going to lose this football game this week. And
it's like an 8.5 point spread.
Guys back. Yeah, I mean, they're getting some guys back healthy. You mentioned Okudah is kind of interesting, the former Lion first-round pick legend. I think Lion
no
fans
revenge
would love
game
to
today.
see him.
Might get a revenge game week 17 after it's meaningless for the Vikings, but
oh man, but
it's down in the dumps, man. It's rough. But here's what I'll say. The Vikings have gotten the injury bug really bad, and I think there's been a bunch of unforced kind of coaching errors that have really sunk them as well. But those coaching errors are all reversible. You can simply, overturn when you put a non-center into the center position and then expected that to work. You can just not do that anymore. You can just go back to other schematic things that were working better, and hopefully you're a little healthier. You have full participation from Christian Darrisaw, full participation off the injury report entirely for Harrison Smith. You can kind of you can hope that as they get a little healthier, this is maybe as healthy as the Vikings have been all season long, because some of the injuries they entered the season with are now finally getting out of getting off the injury report, and JJ McCarthy is now back. So you can get hopefully a look at JJ McCarthy in front of a bunch of Michigan football fans that I'm sure are very familiar with him, and start to make a little bit of progress. But I'll tell you, Matt, the point of this season has shifted, at least in my mind, from let's see if we can't compete for the division to just hope the kid looks good. And if the kid looks good, we can try to get a little younger, get a little, figure out the position groups that are in turmoil in the offseason. But if the kid looks good, everything else feels like window dressing. And if the kid doesn't look good, then you're probably looking at making bigger changes than window dressing.
Yeah, and I know Detroit has a lot of respect, like you mentioned before, for Brian Flores. Certainly KOC is one hell of a coach. And last year's run with Darnold was pretty amazing. And that Week 18 game had a lot of build-up, and it was a lot of fun. And obviously the Lions and that was Aaron Glenn showing off to the point where he got a head coaching job.
Yeah, and I don't think the Vikings have recovered from that game.
No,
they were hungover from it in the playoffs, and they've really only played well wire to wire once all year, and it was that Bengals game that was a pretty clear outlier.
No, I agree. And I think that, Calvin Shepard has kind of picked up where Aaron Glenn has left off. The defense played really, really well 2 Mondays ago against Tampa Bay and completely shut down a guy in Baker Mayfield who was just absolutely flexing at that point. So I'm a little concerned about a week off and just rest because the team had good momentum going into the bye. But again, getting some healthy bodies back, getting Brian Branch back off suspension is going to be huge this week. Branch has kind of said, look, I've made some changes here. I know I messed up and I want to do better. Kirby Joseph, I still don't think is going to play. There's a chance you get some of the corners back, which is a huge thing. But the Hutchinson signing, Aleem McNeil back, which will be a key matchup that we'll bring up in a little bit. Lions feel good heading into this game. And at home, like you said, 8.5-point favorite from our friends at FanDuel should win this football game. Luke, no question.
Yeah, I think so. What I'll say is, the spread is probably appropriately really large. And what I will say is the division is always a little bit weirder than you think. There have been back in the days when it was Aaron Rodgers and the Packers were, held the division by its throat. The Vikings could kind of always go into a game with them and, stun them one way or another. And that's the way the division goes. The Vikings have dropped 5 in a row to Detroit. They're really, really, really sick of losing to Detroit. And they're going to come into this one, hopefully with a different energy, especially coming off of a mini bye of their own. But that all just needs to not get washed away in the problems that they're having internally and how bleak this last month has been, where they've dropped 3 of 4, and even the one they won didn't look or feel very good. So the vibe of this game and how the Vikings come out is going to be this is an inflection point of the season to me. Where are you going to save this thing, or is this going to be like the Bears were last year, where you're just going to start off on a 10-game losing streak?
Yeah.
And I think they have to come out on fire. They have to come out playing hard and in sync and with each other, and look like they have reorganized and hopefully have pulled out of the tailspin that they're in. But if you come out the same way the Vikings have come out in all of their other games, here's a stat for you, Matt. There's one game where the Vikings have a first half touchdown this whole year. They only have one game with a first half touchdown, and it was that Bengals outlier. Otherwise, 6 points or maybe 9 in the first half is it. And so if you go into halftime and you're down 21-6 again, and you're like, maybe we can make a comeback, rats are going to start fleeing the ship. And the Vikings, I said this on Locked On NFL too, are probably closer to firing people than they are to making the playoffs. Yeah. And a slow start on Sunday in Detroit as the division matchup that you really had circled going into this year is the one you have to figure out. If you're getting blasted by them again, you're getting even closer to that. Maybe these guys aren't the right guys to be leading the Vikings.
It's interesting because on the other side, the Lions feel like at 5-2, they're in great shape. Dan Campbell said this week, it's still about winning the division. He actually showed the standings and the jumbled up NFC to his team, which he rarely ever does. But he also knows they can play better.
Interesting move.
Yeah, it is. It's not something that he normally does. Jamison Williams has done really nothing this year. Sam Laporta has been hot and cold in terms of touches. David Montgomery, 1 week in Cincinnati, is over 100 yards and looks great. The next week, it's only a few carries because Gibbs has been so good. So there's only one football. But there's so many weapons that are still need to be shined and running that you're right. This could be one of those games where what if Gibbs, J-Mo, Amon-Ra, Laporta, Montgomery, all of them get going in one game. And like you said, if it's a death knell type situation for the Vikings where, man, 4-4 and we sprung an upset at Ford Field, or 3-5 and it continues to spiral, it could be a long Sunday. That's for sure for the road team.
Yeah, it could absolutely be long. So I guess what I'm trying to approach this game with is how do the Vikings find that opening in the way the Lions approach both sides of the ball where they can get off to a hot start? Because I really don't think they can survive another lifeless first quarter. I think the vibes in Minnesota are too broken.
And we will get to how they might be able to do that coming up next, and some matchups as well. Matt and Luke just spitballing here on a crossover Thursday, Lions and Vikings. And Locked On Lions and Locked On Vikings for this Thursday, brought to you by Crossover brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, you be right, you get paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season, whether it's the NFL, NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump in on the action with our friends at PrizePicks. If you haven't tried it yet, it's simple. Just pick more than or less than on two-player stats. Two-player stats, that's all you got to do. If you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere PrizePicks operates. That includes California, Texas, and Georgia. You could pick your own players and think about what J.J. McCarthy could do this weekend, or Jared Goff, Jahmyr Gibbs, whatever it is. There's the new Stacks feature, which is a game changer. You can now pick more on like Steph Curry three-pointers, all of his points, threes, and assists, all in the same lineup. That is with the Stacks feature. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. And we're also brought to you by our friends at Monarch. Let's be honest, most of us can't even name all of our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth right now. But between 401ks, savings, investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. Now, here's for the but. You start using Monarch, all right? An all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. It's helped me organize my accounts, track my spending, get a better handle on all of my investments without having to touch a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarch.com. That's monarch.com for 50% off your first year. Monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Thursday crossover, Locked On Lions, Matt Derry with you. Locked On Vikings as well, Luke Braun, as we get set for the 3-4 Vikings, the 5-2 Lions, Ford Field on Sunday. Luke, you mentioned it before, players to watch, matchups. What stands out if the Vikings are going to do anything here? Who's got to step up, and what worries you maybe on the other side?
I'm always interested in watching a player the week after he signs a midseason extension. So what Aiden Hutchinson does to respond there. If he blows up for a 3-sack game, the broadcast is going to lose its mind, right? And the fans will go completely crazy there at Ford Field and everything like that. Going up against what we thought would be one of the strengths of the team, which was the bookend tackles, but they haven't really been available. I think we've had the two of them together for maybe 6 quarters all year. Between Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill, but they're as healthy as the two of them have been as a combination all season long. Or do the Lions just want to send Aiden Hutchinson on the inside, go attack what I think will be Blake Brandel as a backup center? Ryan Kelly still on IR with his 5th concussion, bit concerning there. And how they kind of generate pressure there. And I think that's the best way for the Lions to continue to protect the secondary, as the secondary has struggled. I know a lot of it's been hurt, but even the starters have struggled at times. And the best way to protect that secondary is get a whole bunch of pressure and watch a rookie crumble under it, right?
Yeah, no. And look, the Lions secondary played just over there. I mean, they were awesome last Monday night, but it was all these no-name guys, and it was guys like Nick Whiteside and Eric Hallett that they played over their skis. But it was fun to watch, and maybe there's something to build upon there. But I'll say this, you want to talk about matchups. Number one, I like your idea of Hutchinson moving inside, which has happened. Number two, last year, week 18, Amik Robertson played the game of his life, and he's been great. Don't get me wrong, and he's been great this year. But to move him to the outside and to do what he did against Justin Jefferson, you have to figure at some point this week, number 18 is going to go to KOC and go, look, that was embarrassing last year, week 18. Some of that's probably on us, some of it's on me. But give me a shot at Robertson again. Just, the size differential. And again, Amik played amazing in that game, but you're talking about arguably the best receiver in football. And so to watch 18 versus 21 on Sunday, that's something to keep an eye on. That'll be a lot of fun. As JJ, I'm not talking about McCarthy, I'm talking about Jefferson. Is he just frustrated with the quarterback play? What's his situation been like?
Everybody's frustrated about losing. I don't think he's any more frustrated than the next guy. He's been, he'll say all the right things if you ask him about it and say, hey, Carson's doing the best he can and he's competing and all that stuff. I think he was a lot more excited for a year with JJ McCarthy because they spent a lot of time in the offseason together. They tried to build that chemistry, and then you have to go through the whole season not having that guy, and it's this other dude you haven't met that can't throw to you. He's been open a ton, and then you look back and Carson Wentz pump faked him for some reason and gets sacked. But it really, I think for receiving weapons, the story of the season for the Vikings has kind of been about everybody else. Jordan Addison is an absolute stud. I think if Justin Jefferson weren't hogging a bunch of the market share, we'd be talking about Addison in a much different way as one of the better receivers out there in this league. I really believe that he is that good, but he's also a knucklehead and he's been in trouble a couple times. So it's always tempered. But Jalen Naylor, even wide receiver 3, has been open all the time. They did trade for Adam Thielen while a couple of those guys were unavailable. He has been absolutely dreadful. He probably won't be a factor. And they've gotten, I think, when they need TJ Hawkinson, they get the production out of him that they need. But Hawkinson has also gone to great lengths to paper over the backup tackles who have been struggling like crazy. He's basically chipping every play, still catching the checkdowns, being really clutch on third down. There's still a contingent of Vikings fans that really, really, really hate the TJ Hawkinson situation, that they traded draft picks and they paid him and everything. But if you ask me, Matt, I think that that's paid off and then some. So like they have downfield, they're just wrecking secondaries. And then you look at what's happening with the front 5 and the quarterback, and it looks like these guys have never played football before in their life. So the offense doesn't move. So they have to figure out a way to keep that quarterback upright and take advantage of all of these opportunities, because they've looked at much better cornerback rooms like Cleveland and been open all day long.
Yeah, that was, I remember the play in London or wherever, the overseas game where Denzel Ward allowed Addison to score. That was really a strange play. Real fast on the Lions. I've watched the Vikings enough to know I really liked the signings. I didn't like the O-line signings. I thought Fries and Kelly that was perplexing. The D-line signings I loved. Yet you just said it before. People are running all over that front.
Javon Hargrave's benched, man. He's playing like 15 games. He is benched. He is the 4th D tackle on the depth chart right now.
Unbelievable.
But the revelation has been Jalen Redmond, who is another kind of no-name guy.
Was he like a 7th round pick?
He was like a Bama guy. I don't remember even if he got drafted. He came out of the XFL a couple years ago. He's probably the best guy. Like, he has been just absolutely fantastic. He's been outplaying Jonathan Allen, and Jonathan Allen hasn't been like horrible, but he has been like a disruptor constantly. And in especially this stretch where everybody sucks, he's like the only guy doing his job. That guy's been awesome. And he has taken Javon Hargrave's job, but these guys aren't run defenders. They don't have a nose tackle. They've got a bunch of kind of skinnier pass rushers, and people are just denting them up front.
That's where I was going, because when the Lions are at their best, it's the ground and pound stuff, and it's Montgomery up the middle, and he carries tacklers. Gibbs obviously on the perimeter, but Jameer has shown that he can run between the tackles too. And with a week off here, coming off a bye, that O-line, Taylor Decker's needed a week just to get healthy. If they can push that front of the Vikings back and just pound them, you're not going to need Goff and the other guys. It's going to be one of those games that Dan Campbell loves doing, which is let's run the football till they stop us, and that's a possibility.
Yeah, I think Jared Goff could end up passing about 10 times in this game. It's been really bad. The only game where they stopped the run was one where they held Saquon Barkley to, I think, 44 yards on the ground, and then gave up like a million explosive plays to Jalen Hurts because they had committed so many resources to the point where they took their edge rushers off. This is the stupid stuff I'm talking about, Matt. Yeah. They took all of their edge rushers off the field on like second and mediums, put in every D tackle that they had in pads on the front line, stopped the run, and then gave up a perfect passer rating to Jalen Hurts. This is the kind of stuff I have no idea who's making these decisions, but every single thing they do turns to ash. It's insane.
Look, we knew, and we did the preview show with Lauren and Pete, and we knew somebody was going to have to finish last in this division. And I've liked what the Vikings have done the last couple of years, and I was on that Bears are going to be better, but they'll still be fourth bandwagon. But I don't think anybody expected this, especially after week one. I mean, JJ, they could have carried him off the field there in Chicago the way they were glowing about his performance in that second half. And it's been rough. I know I don't have to tell you.
I mean, yeah, it has been. And like the glowing light of this is that the vast majority of this season has not involved JJ McCarthy. Yeah. So what happened in Dublin against the Steelers, what happened on Thursday night against the Chargers, well, he is absolved of blame of that, and now he is back. So if things do turn around, it will be because the kid came in and righted the ship, and that will, even if the Vikings do end up missing the playoffs and the season kind of goes forgotten, it'll be the one where we learned that he could maybe turn things around. But yeah, if JJ McCarthy struggles and throws 3 interceptions and has this totally terrible thing, you're looking at decision makers all the way up to the top and saying, are you sure you're the right guy for this franchise? Like, I think they're really close to making some staff changes at least.
That's Luke Braun. I'm Matt Derry. Let's come back and talk about how the Lions or the Vikings will win this football game on Sunday. We'll do that coming up next. But first, Locked On Lions and Locked On Vikings for this Thursday, brought to you by our friends at Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick awards than anyone else. From footwork to breath work, athletes, as we know, sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how they craft every model. With all-wheel drive standard and every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. Like our players, we do sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Luke Braun, Matt Derry, Locked On Vikings, Locked On Lions. First of 2 meetings between these two clubs. Again, a rematch of last year's Week 18, where basically the Lions destroyed Sam Darnold and crushed the Vikings' dreams. They had to go on the road. Where'd they play that game? Arizona, where they lost to the Rams in the playoffs last year. And as Luke said, it's they have not recovered since. You know, it's interesting. You mentioned McCarthy, and again, in Chicago, he went home. That was his home. Where he grew up, and it was a great story. He will have fans in the stands because people love Michigan football here. Not everybody, but most people.
I'm sure there's some Spartans around that have opinions.
And Michigan State right now, it's almost like they don't have a football program until they get a new coach in there. But that's another topic for another time.
Different show. It's all Locked On Big Ten.
That's right, Locked On Spartans. But JJ, I think, is going to play better in this game. I do. He's got to get in a full week of practice. I've seen some of the clips online of KOC saying, we're getting a full week, written him a full week.
That's huge, yeah. Because he had a full week of practice headed into the Chicago game. That's his first ever NFL game. And then short week off of Monday Night Football, going into a Sunday Night Football against Atlanta, and he misses one of those practices because he's having a baby. And from there, he did not get a full week of practice until this week, which was part of why they kind of dragged their feet so much on bringing him back, even though his ankle was getting closer and closer and closer. That like limited practice, like they didn't want to put him back in that situation because, and tell me if I'm going out on a limb here, you're not going to play that well if you don't practice, which puts the plan headed into Thursday night into a bit of question. But,
yeah. You're running that bit to the ground. I don't blame you though, because
I will never shut up about it. I'm going to be complaining about this until 2029.
It makes no sense because like you said, whether the Lions have not had to play overseas, I think they're going to next year, but Dan Campbell's got it pretty regimented. You know, the mistake they made last year, I thought, was going into when they had the bye in the playoffs, and then they came back and played the Commanders and really didn't do much in that bye. And obviously I just thought they came out kind of soft, and I'm a little worried about the bye this time, just because they had really good momentum. But like my point about how the Vikings win is I see a scenario where McCarthy doesn't play that badly this week. Like The Lions secondary is still banged up, although they get Branch back, maybe Arnold, but like they played so well 2 weeks ago. There's no way they play that well again. And I could be wrong. So I see a scenario where like, hey, JJ looks decent, bit of a coming out party. He's back in the state of Michigan, and the Vikings put up some points. I'm not saying the Lions are going to lose. I actually think they're not, but I see a scenario where he has a decent game. That's all I'm saying.
You got to keep him at least reasonably protected. That Atlanta game that was such a disaster, that's been the taste in our mouths for a month and a half now. I think he took like a 60% pressure rate, like something completely out of this world, total outlier. And some of that was on him too. Some of that was on either having the protection wrong, holding the ball, whatever. But you have to protect, get the ball out on time. As soon as the ball is thrown, I think the Vikings' chances get a lot better. As long as McCarthy is protecting the ball, there's been this big emphasis on do the simple things correctly. Get the snap off when the snap is supposed to happen. Break the huddle at the right time. Get to your check down. Get through your reads. Be on time. And all of the sort of hero plays, running around, the crazy stuff is secondary to that. But first you have to just like execute the way you are instructed to execute. If they can get that down, they become a much better football team. And then the talent discrepancy that they have, say, with this receiver core versus a struggling secondary can sort of shine, but it just hasn't been able to because they haven't been able to get out of their own way in all these different facets. But I think, do we need to talk about how the Lions win? If everything goes normal, if everybody plays on the median that they've played this season, the Lions win by 3 scores. Yeah,
I mean, Aleem McNeil, like you said, back up a center now, and that's been an issue for you guys, the middle of that offensive line. Look, if you don't have Darisaw for some games and O'Neal, and you got a backup at center, it's going to be a long season. And that's just how it goes. And the Lions O-line is after week 1 when Pete Bukowski's boys whooped them. I mean, the Lions have come back and the O-line's been really, really good. And I watch Aleem McNeil against Brandel this week because Aleem really pushed that pocket back on Baker Mayfield all day a couple of Mondays ago, and getting him back next to Aiden Hutchinson. That could be a real problem for the Vikings, and especially with that crowd at Ford Field. Lions D-line looked really good a couple Mondays ago, and I don't know if the Vikings would pull him too. I know they're benching Hargrave, like you said, but that's a concern, I would say, for Minnesota.
They've benched several players. They benched Ivan Pace. They've benched Javon Hargrave. They benched their backup center, who's now demoted to 3rd string, to put in Blake Brandel. They came in with a depth chart that's completely different than what they have now, which kind of tells me, like, I don't know if they have any idea what they want to be anymore. But for the Vikings on the other side of the ball, for the Vikings to finally stymie these Lions that have been such a problem for Brian Flores, they're going to have to get a handle on Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's been a Viking killer. I mean, he's been the guy all season for you, and he's been especially the guy against the Vikings in the past. So it feels like he's just like going to be all eyes on what he does. And if the Vikings can find a plan for that, to not just get beat immediately over the middle all the time, that'll work. But I don't know what Flores wants to go in and do against Jared Goff, who has beaten his blitzes into the ground over and over and over and over again over the last 2 years. Are you going to blitz him a whole bunch again, or are you going to let him hang back and contain rush? Or like, what do you do with Jared Goff and trying to stop him from doing what Justin Herbert and Jalen Hurts were able to do, which is be a veteran quarterback, get the ball out on time, beat the blitz, like veteran quarterbacks know how to do. Dylan Gabriel is not going to walk through that door anymore, and most of the matchups for the rest of the season are going to require you to either get your blitzes to get home or figure out how to close down the middle of the field.
Luke, great to see you, my friend. Appreciate you and I getting back together and chatting. We'll do it again later in the year. I don't know.
Before we go, can I ask you for one thing, Matt? Because on my show, I do bold predictions every Friday. I've got a deal with my listeners. If you hit a bold prediction that I read on the show, I'll donate $20 to a charity of your choice, and then I'll gift them some of my Patreon page. But for the charity part of it, I would love for you to get in on that. Do you have a bold prediction for Lions Vikings that I can pop into the list here?
Is it bold to say that JJ will throw 2 touchdowns?
Well, we can look at the FanDuel odds for that.
I knew you'd have them ready.
We can go.
I like I said, I'm no Stan here or Homer, but or Slappy for JJ.
It's plus 168. I would have to say you got to get bolder than that.
So 3? No,
3 is plus 640. That's a solid bold prediction.
He's not throwing 3.
Would
All
be
right,
bold.
you ready? You ready for this bold prediction? And it's not that bold here in Detroit, but I'll do it. David Montgomery is going to throw a touchdown pass Sunday. He did it.
Perfect.
He did it earlier in the year in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
I think he's done it twice this year.
We got one out of Cam Akers.
He was supposed to throw one to Goff that got called back in Kansas City, and that was the Lions.
Oh, that was the thing.
I'm going to go with
Vikings
another.
did that motion once. It was really funny.
Yes, I'm going to go with another Montgomery touchdown pass. So
another Montgomery touchdown pass. Perfect.
I'll donate some money to. We'll figure something out.
Yeah. So if that's correct,
donate, I'll call the charity out.
I'll donate $20 to a I imagine Detroit area charity of your choice.
Well, actually, we're going to send the money to the ISA Foundation over in Jamaica. I was telling you beforehand.
Perfect. Yeah.
Where I was recently and got out before the storm. But
goodness,
you and I will talk after that. But all right, brother, good stuff.
Cheers.
Luke Braun, Locked On Vikings. Matt Derry, Locked On Lions. Thursday crossover brought to you by PrizePicks.